Right, so with the M1 Pro MacBook Pros out of the way, let's now delve into the next big MacBook release, which should be the next generation MacBook Air with the M2. And well, we have a few tidbits regarding it, and so let's delve into it, but first, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors, and with that being said, let's just tuck in. Right, so this tidbit is coming from a Chinese source called TY98. Now yes, I know many of you guys might not know who this is, but this was a leaker who gave us many credible details about the M1 Pro MacBook Pros back in August. In fact, he was the first person to mention there would be a notch, and so yes, I do think they're pretty credible. Anyways, the first tidbit they say might be a little disappointing, and that is, we should see the notch we have on the MacBook Pro come over to the next generation MacBook Air. Now this does make a ton of sense because generally the Air and the Pro have similar designs, and so since the Pro has a notch, the Air follows suit. What I'm hoping for though is that we see the notch but no white bezels, because imagine having a cutout with white bezels. The notch is not going to blend in with the background like it does on the MacBook Pros, and so it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, and it's going to look hideous. And so yes, if we do see a notch, please Timothy, give us black bezels, let that notch blend into the background. White bezels would be horrific. And to be honest, since we're supposedly getting mini LED with this MacBook Air, I think Apple's basically going to reuse the 14-inch form factor, so this should be the same mini LED panel we get on the Pros, but without the ProMotion tech. And yeah, for the longest time I was always wondering what Apple was going to do to differentiate the panels on the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, and of course, we now know the big differentiating feature is going to be ProMotion, like we see with the iPads and the iPhone 13 series. Now the next thing the leaker says is that the MacBook Air is going to be getting rid of the iconic wedge design, and according to him, is going to look a lot better. Now we have heard about this in the past. For example, John Prosser's renders of the MacBook Air also don't have the wedge-shaped design, and this is something I'm still unsure about because the wedge shape is iconic. It's what makes a MacBook Air the MacBook Air, much like the chin makes the iMac an iMac. And so even with the redesign, we saw the iMac keep the chin, and so why would Apple remove an iconic design element with these new MacBook Airs? In fact, this supports my theory that maybe Apple's getting rid of the Air Moniker and of course just has a base MacBook. That could make sense, and that could be why the wedge-shaped design is leaving this new design. Now the source also mentions the design is going to be very round and light, and that makes me think of the polycarbonate MacBooks Apple used to make, and so of course with Apple going retro with their designs, maybe the new Air is going to be based on those older designs. And of course, a light design makes sense because Mark Gurman from Bloomberg did say that the MacBook Air should have a lighter and thinner design, and this does make sense because with the efficiency and the compactness of Apple Silicon, Apple can give us a much thinner, lighter, fanless device. Now as for other changes we should expect, we should see new colours that should resemble the iMac colours. That should be pretty nice. We should also see the MagSafe port that just came back with the MacBook Pros, and of course we have the M2 chip, which should have a similar layout to M1, but of course with a 15 cores and a new 10-core GPU. Now price-wise, I do think this MacBook Air is going to be more expensive. We saw a price hike with the redesigned MacBook Pros, and so I think we can be sure these MacBook Airs are replacing the base MacBook Pro at $1,299, and then of course the M1 model stays at $999. Apple did a very similar thing to this with the 2018 Retina MacBook Airs. Those were slightly more expensive, and the older non-Retina version stayed at $1,000, and so I do think Apple's going to do the same with these new MacBook Airs. As for the release, we're not really sure, but to be honest, since Apple's not done with the Apple Silicon transition, I think they're going to update the Mac Mini, the Mac Pro, and then get round to this MacBook Air. So that means we could see a pretty late release in 2022 that could be in October. Anyways, tell me in the comments below, guys, are you waiting for the MacBook Air with the M2 chip? Anyways, thank you for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out the video in the card above on details regarding iPhone 14. And on that note, I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.